Hello, and welcome to Scuttlebutt, the War Movie Review Podcast. We're happy to have you with us as we take a look at films from the dawn of cinema to today. We aim to provide a raw and unapologetic review of each film's cinematography, historical accuracy, and delivery. In the process of analysis, certain details will be revealed. These spoilers are only divulged to ensure a fair assessment of each film. We head south of the Mason Dixon line this week with our first American Civil War film, John Huston's 1951 epic, The Red Badge of Courage. As always, I'm joined by Mike A.
Hello.
Mike B.
Hey.
And the only Southerner here, Nate.
Which is kind of terrifying because no one considers Maryland part of the South, but hi.
Hope you like railroad ties,
motherfucker.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, what do you think?
We can't be sweating this close into the episode.
Sorry.
We're within
Yeah,
45
Brian.
seconds.
I can't do that in front
It
of the king.
tarnishes the reputation of our
No
podcast.
swearing.
Oh, good
Brother in
heavens.
Christ, how dare you swear?
All right, so Brian, take us in.
Oh, okay. Audie Murphy, 1951.
Don't say his name 3
Phil
times.
Malden. It's not Biggie Smalls.
That's one.
Yeah, it's a very interesting movie. I have not seen it before. I've heard a lot about it. I've heard a lot about the book as well. I have not read the book as well, even though I read all the time.
It's a
I'll
pretty
probably
quick
put it in
read.
my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not too long.
Quick
but-
watch.
yeah, it was only like an hour and 8 minutes or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long. But
Cut from a 2-hour version.
Oh, really?
This movie was
Interesting.
originally 2 hours long.
I was
yeah.
very surprised for the film nerds out there. John Huston is the director, and he's a World War II vet. He filmed a lot of stuff during the Second World War, and he's also made a bunch of really amazing films like The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and just really awesome stuff. So, and the Maltese Falcon as well. So it was really interesting to see him direct this and his version of a war movie, because I don't think he did another war film, if I can remember. I thought it was very interesting, and I'm glad I finally was able to see it. And I'd like to see these old black and white films, especially when they're not Sergeant York. And this is 10 years after that.
Well, it's kind of the end. I don't want to say the antithesis of that, but it's this movie was very poorly received when it came out, and it's kind of, you can kind of tell why. It's a bit ahead of its time in some ways. I think for some stuff, people apparently, when they did the test audiences for this movie, the 2-hour version, like, people didn't know what the hell was going on the entire time. And that was like the main complaint. Like, this doesn't make any sense. What is the point of all this? It's just ludicrous. So they cut it down to 69 minutes, and they added in passages from the book and narration that wasn't originally in it. And they thought that fixed it, I guess. But apparently the 2-hour version is completely lost to the ages. It has been destroyed, and there are no versions of it left.
Really?
There's got to be a copy somewhere mislabeled. Somebody,
Hopefully,
hopefully,
yet to be unearthed. Things are still, things still get unearthed, every day. So, hopefully someday.
I've seen way too much cool shit come out of woodwork. It's like none of these more exist, and then somebody in Poland found 4 in a house.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have faith, but it sounds a lot like the botched receiving of the 80s movie Big Red One. Because that was like another World War II, or that was another war film that really just wasn't received well, and it had a very long cut in the beginning, and they cut the soul out of it, and then but that wasn't lost, and luckily you actually have like a director's cut or something.
There's like 2 or 3 iterations of that movie, I think. Yeah. And every time I watch, I mean, not to get off subject, but every time I watch that movie, I'm lost. It doesn't hold me. It doesn't hold me.
Yeah.
I can't wait to actually do it for this.
My hemorrhoids erecting up.
I can't wait to do it for this movie, because I feel like it's been for this podcast. I am exhausted. Is that going through and like thinking about that movie in particular? It's like maybe not enough time has passed where I'm not jaded by it, because I think the first time I ever saw that movie was like 10 years ago. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I guess to jump in on my take on this movie, I mean, like, I actually, I'm surprised you have never seen this before, Brian, or had read the book. I was, when I was in high school, I had to read the book and then watch the movie and then do like a whole like paper on it and like compare the two and what was kind of different between the two mediums and how it kind of played out and which one did I prefer. And it's been almost 15, 20 years at this point since I've written it, so I didn't remember it before I watched it today. But I mean, like, it was, I've really liked this movie. It's really funny. It's like again, I think what Mike A had kind of said was like it's kind of ahead of its time. But what I was very much impressed was, even though there was like, hands up in the air flailing from pyrotechnics, the whole physical the whole practical engagement and the effects and the wide angle and the wide shots and all that kind of stuff, like that's something you don't really see that much. You didn't see that much kind of wide. I use aerial in quotation marks, aerial shots as best they could. I mean, it was one hill into a valley, so that was like how they could do like the aerial shot. But it was very interesting to see how that kind of cinematography was kind of starting out even at this point.
Yeah.
In this movie,
John Huston apparently wanted to create what he called an alienating battlefield, and so that's why he shot it that way.
Yeah, I love that one shot. I think it's the best Civil War movie shot I've ever seen of basically a smoke encrusted line of dwindling men.
You can barely see
get
anything.
to a point, then run away, and it's like that's a late Napoleonic War battlefield. You know what the fuck you're shooting at? There's these things that get close, and they kind of get a little closer, and then you shoot so much that they don't get any closer.
Yeah.
Like, that was really cool and neat to see.
You get close enough.
And I think it's also
you get close enough to capture the eagle. So Yeah.
Well, that's and somewhere in the hills there's a group of Japanese high command officers that are meeting about where they're going to strike next. I know it. They cut that out of the movie. That was in the 2 hour long version. But it was very interesting to see that, and that was definitely my favorite shot of the movie. And but in a way I could see how that would push people away. We're like, the same year that this came out, Fixed Bayonets came out, and
oh really?
so it's interesting to compare these two.
53?
51.
I thought Fixed Bayonets was 53.
Am I getting that wrong? Oh,
I could be wrong. I could easily be
Oh,
wrong.
dear
No, it was a wartime film.
God.
I think the original release of the Red Badge, though, was 1949. I think that's when it was.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When it was
Interesting.
initially released, and then it was re-released.
That was a trend in the 50s.
Yeah.
There was one of my
double features.
one of my interests. I mean, it's a little bit different. But one of my favorite shows that I grew up was the Disney series Zorro, and it was the black and white version with with Guy Williams, and it was I loved that show, and they would do reruns all in the late 90s.
Yep.
And it was super cool. And one thing I noticed was trying to go back and rewatch them, because the internet's a thing and you can find a certain amount of them, but Disney Plus has like a movie, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I've never knew that. And then I go in to see it, and it's just a TV show mashed together with lots of stuff cut out, but then scenes inserted like 5 or 6 years later to like kind of fix the plot holes that they filmed later just for the movie, just to have it as like a sequential hour and 20-minute long movie.
Even though it's just a bunch of episodes stapled together.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of episodes like smashed together with like little inserts of Guy Williams at the beginning, and then him like 5 years later, and all the actors, and they have aged, and it's just like then it cuts and it goes back to another thing. So it was just very it's a very 50s kind of thing, because I think that one came out in like 56, and I think the original one came out in like 51 or 53.
It's fine. Fuck it. No one's gonna know.
Right? No. But it's just no. I mean, I'm not like bitching about it. It's just a common trend I see.
Right.
And so like going into what I mean by this, it's like, the audience doesn't like it, so what do? We go and cut it, and we like shorten it up, and we add narration, and we do all this other stuff, and it just seemed to be a common thing within that time. If it's like, if it didn't succeed, okay, try it again, but add the things, I guess, that would possibly make it.
It got the Blade Runner treatment,
yeah.
The Wicker Man too. All these films, like, it didn't test well with these 12 old people. Well, let's make it, work for them. And then they just destroy it.
To kind of chime in on Mike Gay's thing, and let Mike B give his startup, is that...
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
Do your thing, yeah.
Well, I mean, like, the thing I was thinking about was, you had said, like, it didn't test well. Did they say the reasons why it didn't test well other than the first one you kind of gave? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's cool. I got the wiki page pulled up here. I remember I read a lot about it in the book Picture. I don't have that with me right now, but let's see what wiki says. It says blah blah blah. Okay. Let's see here. When the studio cut the film's length and added narration taken from the original, supposedly from poor audience test screenings.
Okay, so they don't really give the reasons why for the poor audience test screenings.
No,
as I guess the only Southerner in here, I can tell
too much CBT.
I can tell you right now that it being against the Confederacy kind of glorification film, that is a big part of it.
yeah.
Especially in the 50s. Even my parents' generation of relatives still claim that, Sherman and Grant are pieces of shit, and the Union was more of a criminal.
Rise again.
Yeah, and
well, make sure you don't again.
I
do remember.
I don't
I was
have
gonna say earlier.
I don't
Nate,
have a dog in the fight, but I will tell you, my family's history is south of the border. So
I was gonna say earlier, Nate. It doesn't surprise me that as a Southerner, you had to read this book and have a thesis on it. While we knew you so you just have to ingrain that a little bit in there. Just a little bit more.
I'll defend Sir Brother Nathan a little bit. I'll defend him. And
he's from Wisconsin, so he's kind of a Southerner, but he's in the North. But
Oh,
thanks.
wait,
no. I know. I know where he's going with this.
Hey, Iron Brigade, it's cool.
I know the Iron Brigade. He's going to remind me that the Iron Brigade kicked our ass, so that's fine.
They fucking did, and they were awesome troops. But those Western Northerns.
So I'm a fucking Yankee. I just live a little bit far north.
Yeah, you are.
What
Yankee.
in the good God, Lord, whatever you're smoking.
Here on the right side of the Hudson,
What the fuck are you smoking? I'm a Yankee just a little bit far north. What the
far west?
Oh my God. Well, okay, far west. That we can debate. And yes,
west.
I will agree.
Technically,
a Yankee. However,
I
was gonna say if the South's gonna rise up again, you don't want to have a bunch of guys from Scotty and Michigan and Illinois kicking your ass again wearing hard hats. You just don't want to do it. The hardy hat. We'll wear the modern uniform or the hardy hat.
Look, Marylanders were neutral. All right, I don't care what the history books say.
Just like Eastern Tennessee was neutral.
You still had slaves.
Okay. No.
What
anyway,
is crazy though, traveling in the Eastern United States, North or South, the amount of Civil War memorials, to guys that were lost at all these crazy battles far away, it's insane. And the
culture still shapes the landscape to this day.
Oh yeah, I noticed that when I was in Missouri. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you don't.
Oh yeah,
you don't.
You were in Territory.
Well, and speaking of Missouri, so there's a lot of the huge battles like Gettysburg, Chancellorsville,
drive down Route 81.
Antietam, Vicksburg.
You'll drive through the Shenandoah.
But here's the thing: there was a lot of fucking battles west of the Mississippi that were fought in the Civil War. They're never talked about though because they weren't as huge, but they were also pivotal because it was like the North was trying to go down west of the Mississippi to get down south, and the South was doing the same shit. They were like, yeah, let's try to get up around here. We can cut up, and the logistics at that point just you can't do it. And
it's like the North Africa campaign in comparison. These crazy battles were fought, but because of where they were, they're just not studied as much as, like you said, Gettysburg and the main ones.
Yeah, very true. But anyway,
like the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think they covered a bit of the Western South, like Civil War stuff. Obviously a fantasy film, but
like
it's interesting. Yeah.
So this I should just preface this with the book was actually trying. Stephen Crane wrote this about the Battle of Chancellorsville, right, in Virginia. And that's what the book is based off of, right? Again, it's a fiction. This did not happen the way it was written, okay? So Chancellorsville was a massive clusterfuck for everybody involved. It was insane. It lasted a long time. It was just a bloodbath. It was fucking ridiculous. Now, the film also took, because in the book, Stephen Crane wrote this about a New York regiment, if I'm not mistaken, right? And in the film, it was an Ohio regiment. I mean, still Union, whatever, but like details like that are fairly important because New York, you got a lot of guys coming in there, immigrants at this point. Okay, the guys who were in New York is the
riots in 63 or 64.
Well, this is 62, so. This is coming to play.
Oh, I thought it was after Gettysburg.
No, but so
were they part of the Dead Rabbits or
what?
5 points.
Were they part of the Dead Rabbits?
Yeah. Listen, I don't give a tuppeny fuck about your moral conundrum, you meathead shit sack.
Are you a Finnegan Benz?
I'm not.
Sorry.
Keep stuff in your goddamn cock holster.
I didn't mean to interrupt
with that
you.
delicious looking sandwich.
I'm shoving dinner in my mouth. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Gives me shit for eating chips, and he's got a whole fucking sandwich.
Hey, at least he's not crunching in the microphone.
Hey, yeah, I'm not going. Oh yeah, no. You know, Red Badge of Courage is a great movie.
You know what? Now I'm gonna do it.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Here we go.
Let me get us back on track with. I'll interject this. So that's interesting about the battle, Mike. My favorite line from the movie was where one of the Union guys goes, "I wonder what battle this will be called." And that was just a very interesting thing, you know, because when you're fighting on the territory or whatever, you're just like, that's the last thing you're thinking.
Bull
of,
Run, that's that's a hill. Like that's the name of one hill in this entire battle. You know, it's like that was the name. So they started doing that, and they were like, "Yeah, I wonder what this is going to be called." And it ended up becoming Chancellorsville in the book. I don't know about the film, how accurate that was, but like Chancellorsville was a fucked up thing, and it was an early campaign that was huge because Gettysburg and Antietam they come later. Okay, but Chancellorsville was insanely terrible, and nobody seems to give a fuck or know about that. And I want to preface this entire podcast of me going on with my Civil War shit. I am the opposite of a fucking expert in the American Civil War. I don't know shit. I know very macro level shit. Very macro level shit.
And I even know less than you.
Well, and I don't know the uniforms, which we're going to talk about, and the weaponry.
Blue and gray.
You're fucking funny, Brian. But anyway, no, so I don't know that, but I'm going to comment on, I do know that Chancellorsville was really fucked up, and they portrayed this as being like nobody really knew what the hell was going on. It's wide open territories. There's hills that you have to take. There's fucking creeks. There's rivers. There's shit you have to cross. And that from my knowledge, my macro level knowledge of Chancellorsville was true. It was just insane, and nobody knew what the fuck was going on. Not even the generals on either side. And they're like, we got to hold this. Okay, we got to push, blah, blah, blah. But that was basically the entire American Civil War was nobody knew exactly what the fuck was going on or could predict how a battle would go because it was just so turning over all the time. All these troops and everything. And what I was saying is like a New York regiment would be a little bit different because in 62, after the original like New York State Guard were activated and all that shit, and they became whatever fucking regiments and everything, they were all marched off. A lot of the New York regiments were immigrants, right? And they would come down and they would send those guys in with like very minimal combat experience. They're from all walks of life, from Europe, you know, the poor people and whatever. And they'd just be like, hey, you want to serve your country? You're going to go down and fight this. Now, Ohio, a little bit more settled, a little bit more people who had been there a while. So that's going to be a different story. Does it make a difference in the story as far as like the book versus the film? I don't know, perhaps, but I don't think the film portrayed it terribly. Again, not an expert at all. Like my quote unquote expertise goes back to about 1900, right? Let's be honest. And before that, I'm not too in tune with like the Spanish or Spanish American War, all that shit. Like, okay, and then goes like the Indian Wars, and then fucking the American Civil War. But from what I've heard, and like my a lot of my good friends are Civil War reenactors and historians.
Weird motherfuckers.
Weird, yeah. Yeah, Fat Monk, if you're listening to this, which you fucking aren't, I guarantee you, but Fat Monk, that's his YouTube handle. But yeah, what they've told me is like, yeah, the American Civil War was like really just unorganized in every respect. Like it was just people that were just making do with what they thought was right and whatever. And you had a couple good generals on the Confederate side. You had a couple good generals on the Union side, but most of these leaders were just fucking out there, and a lot of them got killed.
I think it also kind of comes down, if you think about it, and it's just I again, I'm going to put out the blanket statement. I am definitely not an expert in Civil War history to the T. I'm very, 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 very minute knowledge. I just know enough. When I see it, I know it, but I don't know like the in and outs. Like we have a buddy in common, Brian Less. He would do circles around all of us. I mean, it's amazing. Which, by the way, he's interested, so we'll go into that.
What for Gettysburg?
Yeah, or whatever. Next Civil War one we should do. I think we should have him on. I think he'd kick ass. So, in putting out that statement, I mean, I think the Civil War came down to the same thing. I think we talked about World War One, where these officers were pulled in because they had to be, and I think it's the same thing in that sense with the in the Civil War. I think you had. I think you had guys who would be exceptional in their job, and then you'd have ones that just sucked eggs.
And that actually shows in the film too. Like,
right?
It
yes.
shows like you get the lieutenant, which I don't know why he's not wearing a bar on his rank, but maybe I could be wrong. But like,
I don't know if it's the same thing for Civil War at this point.
Well, I'm almost positive that all that I've seen, like a lieutenant is going to be wearing bars on that fucking
shoulder.
If he was a second lieutenant, maybe not, but like who knows? But so the lieutenant was like, he's just doing his best. He's all fired up, full of piss and vinegar to try and look good. And then you've got like the captains and then the majors and the colonels that are like on horseback and they're kind of doing their thing. And I do like the scene too where the general is riding by.
That's one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, he's like, "What are you guys eating tonight?" Oh, fucking hardtack and I forgot. It was a common dish at the time, or not dish, but like staple that they would eat. And he's like, "Oh,
hardtack and spotted dick."
No, it was what the fuck was it? It was.
Are you talking about the bacon? It's just, are you talking about like the hard?
Yeah, it's just like fucking salt pork, like shitty salt pork. But there was a name for it. Yeah, and oh, say what up, and I can come in. And then he goes out to the next like company, not even like fucking 50 feet down, and says the same
thing. Yeah,
it's like, yeah, okay.
But then at the very end of that scene, he addresses the last unit, and they're like, "Are you gonna eat with us?" Yeah, yeah, that he knows. Yeah, "Are you gonna eat with us, General?" Yep. And he's like, "Fuck you," or something.
Yeah, piss off. Yeah, yeah. Good relationship between the officers, just like World War I.
Oh god, I choked on my food.
Oh no.
Oh
well, try not to choke. I mean,
Sergeant York had great officer, or sorry, Corporal York had great
PFC.
Oh, wait, no, he wasn't even a corporal. Oh my god,
well, Brian,
you're fucking up twice.
James is gonna come. Oh, you swore. You can't say that, Mister.
Don't
fucking swear.
You
That's
fucked up thrice.
Yeah,
in 10 seconds.
You're challenging a Medal of Honor recipient. Okay, you can't question Christianity or God.
His kids are gonna come spit on you now. Whoops.
Speaking of Medal of Honor, there's some very interesting people in this movie. I guess I haven't. But before we get into that, Nate, you said you liked this movie, right? Yeah, I like this quite a bit. Mike, what are your thoughts on it?
I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I mean, maybe the audience was right in the fact that it doesn't drag on and on and on. It probably makes it the most digestible, I think, of that. But there's other parts of it that I think are really really nailed down well. I mean, like again, like the battle stuff. Just it seems like it's almost like it's filmed in a style 10 years ahead of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does that make sense? Am I kind of like, because like you have very kind of, even with the filming, I mean, this was kind of when they were really were getting out of kind of the stage films. Like they're kind of starting to break out of that. Mm-hmm. And one thing I noticed with this film, and I know this isn't the only example of the time. I know there were a bunch of other films that do that. A movie that I constantly take reference from for black and white is a movie called Attack, and they did do something like this, but not quite to the extreme of kind of almost kind of felt like very, I don't know if it's Kubrick, just very close in your face. They had a lot of those shots in this time, and to me, it's like most of those war films at that time don't really have that. They tend to kind of be very stage set, like Fixed Bayonets, I think broke some of the status quo, but it's still filmed on a stage, and And so like this didn't feel like it was that for the most part.
The whole movie is on location. Yeah.
Okay, so I am correct. Okay,
you are correct. Yeah.
Okay, so like that's something that you don't normally see. I mean, there are some. I mean, in terms of, I mean, how do I say it? Yes, there are breakout films of the time period and even before that did that. But the common theme of shooting on location than stage seems to be kind of taking precedent to the rest of the film industry at that time. And so it seems to be very interesting to see kind of like that breakaway. And with that, I think you have people getting a lot more artistic in their shots, especially on location. Because even on location, they kind of make them kind of like medium to wides, and they kind of stick to that. And this tended to not be that. And I noticed that this time around, it is a wide, but it doesn't. It's not shy of being close up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of close ups that like kind of convey what the character is, and the characters did a great job. Like the actors did a great job at like conveying. It wasn't like overdone. It wasn't like a silent film where they're over dramatic. You know,
no,
right? Yeah,
it was like when they would zoom in on their facial expressions. For like if they were before a battle, during or after, you know, feeling guilt, you know, etc. from that whole thing, it was like zoomed in and it was portrayed and it came across very well.
Yeah,
it's awkward, it's very uncomfortable, it's very close up, and it was still like not even for 51. Like again, you're like you were saying it very far back, very new to this. It seemed like now I know what you're saying, but it's ahead of its time because these shots are shots that are still done in cinema today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you primarily see them about 10 years later in war films.
Yeah,
like I haven't seen it yet, and I feel guilty of saying it, but I have never seen Waterloo like all the way through. I've only seen clips.
Me either.
And
such a good movie.
And that is something I think that you know, I think we should definitely do that, and I think it's very impressive. It's a very impressive movie from the clips that I've seen that Brian has also kind of shoved down my throat over the years. It's made
the cavalry scene is just there's nothing like
exactly. But like, but that kind of
Bob Squares.
But my point of that, Brian, is like, you know, we have a technological gap in terms of this being filmed at that time, because back then they're having helicopters flying over all these guys and it's huge extras, but there's no really ability to put cameras and helicopters, at least for Hollywood at that time, to my knowledge, at least without putting a ton of money into it.
It's way expensive.
Yeah,
if they could,
so you know, the thinking of, you know, a plane, obviously you can't get those steady shots in that slow pace. So what's the thing? Putting on the very top of one hill to film inside of a gully and kind of get that aerial shot. And I think that's something that we see very prevalent about 10 to 15 years afterwards in every war movie. You see aerials because the technology is allowing you to be able to get those shots with helicopters until about 15, probably almost 10 to 15 years at this point. We've just now had the technology of drones. So you see a lot of independent movies have the ability to have aerials now versus that only seemed to be a thing for big budget Hollywood. And so,
or it was airplanes or
So my point is like, you know, you start seeing the trends and shots with the technology. So when someone kind of does it before its time, where the technology makes it easy, it seems it's very impressive in my eye to kind of set that stage in that shot. But
I think some of my favorite directing, talking about all the shots and the close-ups, is what Brian talked about with the long shot of where it's just the smoky atmosphere with the vague silhouettes, contrasted with, it's like a collage of really big close-ups of each soldier as they fire their rifles.
Very cool. Crisp and in focus, and good contrast.
Right.
Notice that of the time. I mean, that I know that all depends on so many variables, but the point is like it's really well lit. It's very well done, because sometimes when you have those close-ups, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're out of focus.
It's natural light. They capitalize on their natural light. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. They figured out before they shot when they were going to do these scenes, when the light was going to be the best naturally, and they
go with it.
They rocked it, and
the editing is very, very fast paced. If you think about it too, it's not.
Yeah.
If you think about just of the time as well, it seems to be very cut.
Well, and it's cool because they didn't have CGI. So when you're looking at those shots like you were just talking about, where it's all smoky and shit, and you see the Confederates, you know, retreating or coming forward, those are real people.
Oh yeah,
those are extras, and like you could tell because they're moving exactly like real people are. They're not. It's not a shit. It's more believable to see a black and white film with real human beings moving forward or back than it is to see CGI today in any fucking capacity.
a CGI shitfest, yeah. And a lot of those wide shots were great, where you'd see like the artillery's like the explosions going off. Like that looked great, you know.
And you have some form of troop movement within that thing and within those shots as well. And so it's I will say that, you know, in terms of, I guess, the CGI comments, like practical is always better than CG. And it should always be you should always try to get it in practical if you can, even today. And CG is just a insurance, is what I always say. Unless you're trying to make it like a dragon, then yeah, you need CG. But you know, it's like, you know, the point is,
no, it's easier to make a practical dragon. I'm gonna go paint my dog.
I'm gonna go dress my dog up into a.
There's always stop motion.
I'm gonna glue reptile scales to her, and yeah, we'll see how that works.
No.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's
technology.
It's those wide shots were really good. Like they were, because here's the thing: is like they keep you going. Like, oh, okay, so this is what's going on macro, and then you zoom in onto this small group of guys, and you're like, oh fuck, that's what they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way they edited that and like they shot it was like, oh, there's a shitload of guys moving forward, and then there's like these few guys here in this little like. It's a creek bed. It's a dried up creek bed. And you kind of get that fear. Like you go, fuck, if that's what I was looking at, would I get up and run?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, holy fuck, man. Like, and the cavalry comes in and just, you know, tears them apart. And then it's like, Jesus.
I also love how when they're shooting, you never see like an individual who they shoot. They're just shooting into a mass of smoke, you know, or into a mass of vague apparitions out there. It's like they're so far away, you know, and I know that like the range on those rifles back then was not very good, but still, like it still wasn't.
Actually,
go ahead.
So no, at that time the Civil War rifles were pretty fucking accurate, like out to 500-600 yards.
Okay,
it's just the tactics were antiquated. So they were using tactics for rifles that were smoothbore muskets and stuff, but they were using fucking rifled muskets. So that's the real deadly. I don't know much about the Civil War, but I had a really good friend of mine give me a tour of Gettysburg. It was fucking cool, and that was what I really took away from it. Is that the deadliness came from the weaponry they were using and the antiquated tactics they were applying to it. So it's just like, you know, the equivalent of dudes lining up with AR-15s and full auto and just shooting each other across the field.
Equivalent of World War One.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like it's the same tactics, but I'm saying like technology outpaces the tactics of the time, and so that seems, and that's the same thing with World War One.
Because like, you know, the Patriot, for what it is, they do have some good depictions of like, you know, groups of men shooting and smoothbores and everything, and like, yeah, you're
our Lord and Savior Mel Gibson. Yes.
I think I'm not very good with cap and ball or like, you know, this kind of stuff, earlier firearms, but I believe like it was like a 60% hit rate with like a smoothbore, like let's say above 100 yards or something, right? I could be totally wrong. But then knowing that it got more advanced, you're talking about like a 90% hit rate for somebody that really does not know how to shoot from a city in the 1860s. Like, people are going to fucking die. And the mini ball, the way that it hits bone and shatters it and fucks you up, like, it's just really fucking insane. So, yeah.
Well, and they were also using
the best rifles ever.
Right. You know, but they were also using muskets still, smoothbores, in the Civil War. So it was, I did like that because at one point, Henry, so Audie Murphy's character, is using a pattern 1853 Enfield, right? Which was one of the main rifled muskets.
You see a lot of trapdoors stands as well.
We'll get to that. Was it
a P14 Enfield or?
No, I think it was a standard model Mauser.
Well, yeah, not going to take the fucking bait, Nathan.
It definitely wasn't an AZ.
But no, it's like, it's cool because like in the early scenes, like he's got a pattern 1853. You can see on the lock, it's marked with the crown and everything, and that was a mainstay of the Confederate Army because they were getting a shitload of arms from England at that point, and it would not be uncommon for the Union to capture those weapons and be like, all right, well, it's a 58 caliber, so is ours. Let's fucking use it. and there was some 54 caliber, so you had to get around that a little bit. But like that was a cool little detail. I don't know if they intended to do that or whatever. But also a lot of the like later, like especially like post Gettysburg, when you see a lot of these units that are just like reserve units and just like these units that they just slap together on both sides, they're going to be using smoothbore muskets in combat. It's basically like using I don't even know what the fucking equivalent would be, because we've got rifles, we have rifles, but anyway, it's like I don't know, but anyway, so there was a lot of like units that would use smoothbore muskets in the Civil War, and it was like, wow, that's insane, because like the technology was new, but it wasn't so new that like the old technology wasn't there. And so yeah, it's interesting to see that like units in that. But like, yeah, mostly what you were saying, Brian, is like rifled muskets. They were devastating. And a lot of them, like they did mention this in the film, is like something, I don't remember the exact line, but like he says, I can shoot great, but like, you know, something about like if I are you shaking or something. What the fuck am I thinking of in that there was like a little exchange between, I think, Henry and another guy talking about like shaking, like if you're going to be shooting, like if you're shaking though, it doesn't matter.
I'm not sure,
but there was that.
I'm
like
blanking out, but I remember the conversation, but I don't remember.
Yeah, me too. And shit, I wish I could remember that verbatim. But
was
like,
was it Jeb?
I don't know who it was. But he was talking about like something about shaking, like, and that's a lot of these guys, like if you're lined up doing Napoleonic War style warfare, and like we also use in the Mexican American War, and you're just lined up with these guys, but you've got rifled muskets, which are more than likely going to hit your target if you're accurate. It's like, well, you're going to be terrified and you're going to be shaking, your adrenaline's going to take over, and it's going to be like, I don't care how good of a fucking marksman you are, you don't have something in you. You don't have like fucking opium or fucking booze in you. You're gonna be shaking like a fucking
We need meth German chocolate.
Well, no, meth's gonna make you shake worse. But
those Nazis that were always high all the time.
Those goddamn
Nazis. How they were
Nazis.
able to win.
But no, it's like that also
fascism high on meth.
But it does say something to what Brian said, is like, yeah, you've got these weapons, these rifles that are like the best that's ever been fielded in combat, but
you're standing 200 yards away from each other at a quarter of the range that they're rated for, and you're blasting away.
And guys are getting
like
hit.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
Jebediah doesn't have a jaw anymore, but you're still shooting.
And you have to fucking load that next round and not be fucking terrified.
Yeah,
and you have
don't fuck up.
You have to load that next round and like shoot straight. And then
Jebediah's femur just shattered in 4 different places.
Well, there's
on the ground.
There's a part in the movie where the guy even said, and it's taken from the book, where the guy says, "My knee's been blown off. Please help me."
Yeah.
You know, he's like leaning against a tree.
He shot my kneecap off.
Yeah. Yep.
The guy hanging on the tree.
That's fucking crazy. Like, I mean, obviously they couldn't show like gore back then and stuff like that, but you know, that kind of description, that's pretty visceral. You know.
Well, no, that one scene towards the end where the guy, I forget who it was talking, but he's got like a skeleton foot on, basically. Like it's just like a little bit of flesh and like it's like all the bones of a foot.
I don't remember that.
No, it literally. I should have written this down.
You got to keep notes.
Take
a note.
He keeps notes when the movie's bad. He doesn't keep notes.
I know.
Was it?
Well, I got one note, which we're going to talk about.
Paper
with the weapons.
And just write down shit.
Well, no, I watched the film. I digested, but like, no, towards the end, it wasn't like completely fucking gory and bloody, dripping, but it was like a skeleton foot.
I can't feel my feet. And it's just like puts this.
Well, it was still there. There was just no
a tap dancer on the road again.
I mean, that's pretty fucking morbid. So yeah,
I can't feel my hands.
Yeah, it was fucking insane.
His father, Liam Neeson's gonna put him in a fucking chair now and bring him across the West. Oh wait,
I'm gonna go back and look for that now.
Where he gets the reference.
But yeah, anyway, that happened. But like, yeah, it's
and you can teach me how to juggle.
They definitely did downplay the fucking gore that would have been realistic, which I get why, and I understand that.
1953. So yeah.
Yep.
There's
have you guys ever held
a
Minié ball, like a 58 caliber Minié ball, like a 550 grain?
A long time ago.
If that fucking thing hits you at 100 feet per second, you're going to be hurting.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming at you at fucking 1,500 feet per second.
It wouldn't feel good. That's for damn sure.
Oh my
Jebediah,
God.
no.
I saw a guy once do a test where he fired those into chunks of clay, and like he shot them with like a regular, 223 at first, and then he shot it with those, and it was just like it was you could see it was like day and night how both of them were, like one just was clean through the other one.
It's even it's even more nuts. It's even more nuts to take a look at like the generation before that, which is the Sharps rifle. Which the only reason why I know is because I'm a big fan of Sharps rifle, so I can do the deep dive into YouTube.
Made in Connecticut,
and
with everything else,
they did a whole
what guns do they make in Wisconsin?
The Henry rifle. Just throwing that out there.
Really? No, actually, I'm ignorant. Did they?
They still make them in Rice Lake. It's a couple hours.
Oh, is that just the? But that's just the new one. But the original Henrys are actually made in Wisconsin.
I'm almost positive.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Winchester's New Haven.
It's okay. So they did like a whole like behind the scenes thing, and the Sharps rifle, which is the whole generation before, Flint. Well, thanks, Mike. Jesus,
I moved away from
no,
the mic.
You're fine. They fired it, and that whole the technology even before then, they did like a ballistics gel with like a femur replacement, and even then, like that would destroy the whole entire leg, and that was a whole generation before. So I can't even imagine more accurate, more powerful, more FPS. Like that's insane.
So yes, the Henry rifle was made in this place called New Haven, Connecticut. And,
that why Mike's face was like that.
I guess that the original one. I guess that the new manufactured company they are out in Wisconsin because they've been around for like 30 years now. The new Henrys you can buy, like 308 and stuff. So
they're not in 308.
Some of the newer ones they make in like higher.
Are you
caliber.
Insane?
Yeah.
Are you talking about
Pretty
like the
crazy.
big ones? Are you talking about like the new modern
the
ones?
big boys? They still make them in 45, 70, and 44 Magnum.
Yeah, but some of the I've seen some of the bigger. That's modern shit. Anyway,
they're not gonna make a 308 fucking lever action rifle.
I'm looking it up.
They have for a long time. Anyway,
I'm looking it up. 308.
You have to use a
Henry
fucking.
rifle.
You have to use a blunt fucking nose.
No,
like I don't deny it because I mean Colt is in Hartford, Connecticut. Who gives a fuck? Connecticut, yeah, you guys make a lot of firearms, but you can't own any of them. Just throwing that out there.
Yes, they do make one in 308. That's insane.
What?
Yep.
You gotta use fucking blunt round nose then, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna stop talking so I don't have to say anything else because I'm right. So,
that's fucking stupid though, man. Unless you,
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but yeah, they do make them. It's interesting.
it's weird.
It's crazy that they could. Well, the lever action is such a powerful action.
Oh no,
Crazy
I
that
love
they
the
switch it
action.
out
It's
to
amazing, but like,
same. Do the old Western way where your pistol caliber and your rifle caliber are the same, so you can only buy one type of ammunition.
They make a Henry rifle in 357 Magnum or 38 Special.
Yeah.
38s have a lot of problems feeding, but like, dude, it'd be fucking awesome. I want to get one of those fucking things, but they sell it every fucking where.
Every single like generation of human being wants the Henry, unfortunately, and so they're.
Dude, and they're the ones
every
nowadays.
generation of human beings.
The ones
like,
nowadays are made like literally an hour and a half away from me. Like I've been.
I've been trying to get one for years.
The original ones are made about an hour.
I've been trying to get some. I've been trying to get one for under 800, and I can never get one under 800 that isn't a 22 long rifle. So it's like not even worth
that's
it.
the thing is like the 357 is like about 800.
Whenever you bring a lever gun to the range, everybody smiles.
Oh, they're
It's
fucking
like,
awesome, man.
People love them. Yeah.
Lever action shotguns, fucking lever action it's pretty efficient, man.
Yeah.
Well, I like it. And even though this is not relevant to the movie at all, I like it because I don't have, even as a left-hander, I don't have to take my hand off I don't take my eye off the sight.
Right.
I forgot you were a softball.
Yeah. Oh,
it doesn't matter if you're righty or lefty.
Yeah.
Like you just fucking damn.
I don't know what category to put you in. You're a southerner, but you're left-handed. There's so many categories.
Not good. You strike it out everywhere.
I know.
Then you're from Maryland. That's another file.
I know.
Yeah, not good.
Our gas goes outside the vehicle.
Yeah, dude, listen, I changed when I had that. I'll tell the listeners that story one day, but I changed at that gas station. I went in as a boy and I came out of. Thank you, Maryland. Anyway,
welcome to the Rofo. There we go.
One thing I really liked about this movie is the tension of nothing. Like, you know, when you train and 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 you train, and then you keep training, and then, you know, it's kind of like what they did in Jarhead, which I loved. You know, just like this constant.
This is my rifle.
Oh my god!
Sorry, go ahead.
But you know, that's what I really liked about that. Just the tension of nothing. Like, I'm so mad that there's nothing going on. Like, it just,
and then you get into it,
words don't belong together.
And then and then all of a sudden they get into it and they're like, oh fuck!
Like the guy, he says fucking what was it? He's like, I'm doing my fight and standing up. What y'all laying down for? And then like finally, there's like, I thought you said,
lays down.
Yeah, I thought you said you were gonna stand up. He's like, you shut your fucking mouth or something like that.
Yep.
I love how they dig him with the bayonets too, because that was really cool. Legit thing.
Oh yeah, that was legit. Yeah.
And that was something just to say, because like the whole cast of this movie is World War II veterans. Bill Mauldin and Audie Murphy were both in the ETO. Bill Mauldin was very famous for his sketches from the war that he used to make in Italy and stuff. Beautiful, amazing.
Willie and Joe. He invented Willie and Joe.
Who was Bill Mauldin?
Amazing.
He's the guy. He's Audie Murphy's friend in it. Yeah.
He's like the eccentric. He's got a very strange title at the end. He was like the loud soldier or something.
He's like take my pocket watch. I'm a gone goose. That's him.
Oh,
he's
that guy.
Yeah, that's Bill Mauldin. Yeah.
He's very famous World War II artist.
Yeah, he's the guy very
famous. I know who Bill Mauldin is. I didn't realize that was him though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen him in a couple other things then.
Yeah, he was he did some other stuff. Yeah.
Huh.
I have his book literally right
here.
I
know who exactly who you're talking about with the cartoonist. I just didn't know that was him though.
Yep.
Oh,
that's
well,
cool.
Now you do.
Like,
no, I do. Yeah. I learn something new every day.
That's what this podcast is for, learning.
Yeah.
So something that was you see in with World War II vets that were like constantly in combat, and you see in a few movies, Battleground is where you really see it. But the second you fucking stop, you start digging in. It doesn't matter if you have to move in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour because you have no fucking idea. But the second you stop, you start digging in. That's what you do.
Yeah, no one ordered that guy to do it in the movie. He just started doing it.
Yeah. But like how there was such a cast of World War II veterans for this film because it's 51, late 40s, and how they're all young, and also how their extras probably would be of military age and everything. Like, I really think that was it probably was a World War II practice, not for like inexperienced guys going to combat for the first time, but if you're a World War II vet and you served in the ETO or wherever, you stop, you dig.
Yeah.
That's what you fucking do. And I thought it was very cool to see. And I think I know where that came from. Especially because Audie Murphy fucking knew that. Bill Mauldin fucking knew that.
Yeah.
So it was just very cool to see that.
If I may.
So it might be transposed from one war to the other, but very cool to see.
If I may, I know that because a lot of the info I've read on this book on this movie was from the book Picture. And apparently, John Huston, who directed this. So Audie Murphy was in a number of movies and things like that. This was his first, starring movie though. This was the first movie where he was actually the main character. He did background stuff before this, but this was the first you're starring in a movie. And I have to say I've never thought Audie Murphy I think he was okay for what he did, but I never thought he was an amazing actor. I don't even especially in the movie To Hell and Back, which was directed by a guy who made westerns. And but I think when I look at his performance in other movies and then watch this movie, you can tell he's hurting when he's doing this movie. You can tell that, and I know that they mentioned in the book Picture that he was very difficult to work with because PTSD was just fucking with him like crazy while he was doing this movie. And they had to take a long stretches of time where he couldn't work and he would just get on a horse and go off and do his own thing because he just couldn't take it. But when I watch To Hell and Back, I don't really see it that much. Doesn't feel it. I don't feel that genuine emotion. But I do when I watch this. His performance in this, in my opinion, is way better than something like To Hell and Back.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because he did really get that look of shock and awe in combat very well, which is, what he was going through.
I think John Huston knew how to get it out of him. I don't think the guy who directed To Hell and Back did, because I've seen Audie Murphy.
Who directed To Hell and Back?
Jesse Hibbs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's a Western.
Because I know that John Ford,
mm-hmm.
He was an World War II vet. Yeah. He was Midway and everything. He directed They Were Expendable, which is about PT boats, PT crewmen, patrol boats in the Pacific and the Philippines at the very beginning of the war. And one of his leads, I forget the actor, but he was actually a PT commander in the beginning of the war, after whatever. He did the job and he was his first role out of being in the Navy was playing the role he did in the Navy. And they said that whole time that he was fucking drunk as a skunk and just fucked up. And it was like John Ford literally, like, he was fucking up so much. He said, take as much time as you need. And the guy like went away for 2 weeks and came back and they finished the movie. But same kind of thing, you know, and that was a few years before. It was like
it's the exact same thing.
Okay, come to relive your experiences, but this time we're staring at you.
Right.
You know,
no, it's exactly the same thing. I think John Huston, though, knew how to get it out of him because I've seen some other movies that he did, that Audie Murphy did with John Huston, and his performance is like way better than in anything else he ever did.
Well, it's interesting too because what I thought was cool was that John Huston, you know, he's a World War II vet, but he filmed the Battle of San Pietro.
Yeah.
So he was in places that Audie Murphy
was there,
would have known and knew, and so was Bill Mauldin. They were all in the Fifth Army area, you know, Italy and stuff. So it's kind of interesting how a few years later, these guys that chewed the same dirt, fucking, you know, they're now making a film about war.
They all come together. Yeah.
So I really wonder if that's why he can get through to him, because it's like, Audie, I was where you were, you know, like, you know, I get it.
Probably.
We have that kind of like unit brothership or, you know, brotherhood. Like we went through something that's lived.
Apparently,
and like, you know,
apparently, Audie Murphy didn't care for Bill Mauldin very much. He considered him like a lower kind of veteran. I think he had a nickname for him, which was like pen pusher or something like that, because, you know, he wasn't a soldier. You know, he was like a journalist or something. And they were both at Anzio during the same time. But yeah, it's just I know that I remember reading that in Picture that he was like something. There was a scene where the character that Bill Mauldin plays had to like get kind of like angry with him, and he was like, "Don't you ever talk to me that way, you cartoonist," or something like that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Huh. Wow. Well, that's just, you know, there's always a Remp somewhere. And while Bill Mauldin did witness and he has some amazing art, you know, Audie was there every day. You know, think of Joe and Joe Seja, you know, that one of his best friends that got killed and everything. You know, it's like, yeah, like, there is that. You're veterans, but there's a line.
Right, yeah.
You know, so Kuwait deployment's not a real deployment. But, you know, so.
Do we want to jump into IMFDB
really quick? There's one other actor that I want to mention that you guys glossed over.
Andy Devine.
Yes.
that was cool.
I love that. Yeah, I love Andy Devine.
I loved what he had to say too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's a good scene.
Who is that? I always remember him from when he was older.
Andy Devine,
like in the 70s.
He's the cheery soldier. He's the guy who finds him and brings him to the camp
with the lantern.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I gave it all up to Jesus, and, you know, here I am. Oh,
I didn't know that's who
that was great.
Okay.
That was great. Yeah.
Andy Devine is great. He was in, like, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. He was in a ton of stuff back then.
Yeah. Wasn't he in 1941? For some reason,
he was also, you viewers, or I'm sorry, you listeners who are listening who are millennials or older a little bit, Friar fucking Tuck on Robin Hood.
Wait, which one?
The original, like the original Disney 1973.
The animated one or the Errol Flynn?
Yeah, the animated one. The Disney animated one, 1973. The original Robin Hood. He's Friar Tuck.
What was he not?
Is he?
You know?
Yeah, he is. I immediately recognized the voice. When I saw him, I'm like, oh my god.
Hold on.
Look at it. I'm not shitting you.
He's got a very, very distinct voice.
I'm sure if I'm pulling it up again. By the way, it's a almost 70-year-old movie, so you can find it on YouTube for free. So fuck all.
I always remember him from It's a Mad Bad.
Yeah, as the cop.
Yeah.
Got the numbers coming.
Well, we got them going all over here, and they're stuck in a basement.
Yeah,
that's such a good movie.
It's
under a giant W.
Yeah. Very bit part, but that's a fucking great classic movie, by the way. Mad World. I love that movie.
Rat Race is also it's good.
A rip off of that.
It is, but I get for what they attempted to do. I give it to him because there's great the Barbie Museum and everything.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. I just heard him just say you're in a pretty bad fix, son, and yep. He's got that. Yeah. Yep. I didn't even. It didn't. As soon as you said Friar Tuck from Robin Hood, my mind went. Yep. Nope. 100%. Yep. That's who it is.
Absolutely.
100%. And it's like, yeah. I don't even have to look it up. That's 100% what it is. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Actor.
Hell of an actor.
Yeah, he's great. That's a great scene too, and it's from it's in the book too.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
The book's not that long, by the way. You can find the whole audiobook just looking at for the movie today. I think the whole audiobook's on there. I think it's only 4 hours long.
See how Nate, you said you had to read it in high school? Yeah, well, we were very advanced over here. I had to read it in middle school.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
It could have been high school, it could have been middle school.
No, it was, I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was 7th grade. And I actually liked the book because it was like, it kept my interest and it was short, but it was like, again,
I liked it because it was a war book and I didn't have to read. I didn't have to read Love, Slavers Lost, Shakespeare, and kill myself.
Dude, no, we had to read the same year.
What's your phone number, Nathan?
We had to read where the red fern grows. You ever fucking read that?
Yes, I read that one.
I hated that.
Yeah, you want to commit suicide? Read that fucking thing.
It was awful.
And then you'll be good to go.
I hated that book so much.
Yeah, I mean, that might have been a little bit insensitive, but I don't give a fuck because that's how I felt after that. I'm like, I was so into that book, and at the end, I'm like, oh my god!
Yeah.
What? I remember I was taking a shit when I finished the book, and I'm like,
that's so not uncommon for you. Shit. I love it.
Well, I read when I shit.
Where were you on 9/11? So there I was in the bathroom.
I can tell you that, but it's gonna take up.
When I heard a rumble,
I actually wasn't taking.
And it wasn't me. It wasn't Taco Monday.
No, but I finished where the red fern goes. I would read that a lot, like when I was on the shitter, right? And I finished it on the shitter, and I just went, oh my god, my life means nothing. That's all this is ever going to be. That's all this is ever going to be.
Did it turn out the same? Like,
it's like you ever see the movie or docudrama Threads from the 80s? It's about like nuclear war happening in England. Anyway, long story short,
I want to see
there's one dude. It's really good. It's worth watching.
Actually, it's kind of that movie that like London gets like obliterated, and it's like
the world gets obliterated, but it's focused on like what happens in the UK if there's a nuclear.
Well, who gives a fuck about the UK?
Well, the reason I say this is because there's one guy who right before the bomb drops, he goes into the loo and he fucking gets the Sun newspaper out, and that's fucking Mike Birch. He's gonna go have a handful of fucking cheese curds and go take a shit, and then the world.
Well, I mean, like talking about how the ending of where the red fern grows and like. Being so disappointed that like it's like poetic. You got up and flushed the toilet and everything. Like it's like
just like life. You flushed it down the shitter and then
then I went to school the next day and I gave a fucking like rave review on it and everybody else was like, I was okay. And I'm like, how the fuck did this not kill your fucking? You don't understand. Nothing means anything. Like this is all fucked. It's all fucked. You work for something your entire life, and it just fucking you. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna because there's a lot of people that haven't gone through the book.
Thank you, Michael. Now the new book is Secretariat. Please read it. We'll talk about it.
Read the Red Fern Grows after you read Red Magic Courage. Is what Mike's telling you.
So okay, with that, yes. So in the same class,
Scholastic
the same
Book
year,
Fair.
Yeah.
No, we had to read Red Magic Courage, and I was like, oh, it's a war book, and it was like short, sweet, to the point.
Yep.
And I'm like, that was kind of fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Like, that was.
Yeah. No, it's not like not that any war book is happy go lucky, but it's like it hits you on a different level, and it's very interesting for the time period. I mean, because I don't know, it's not something you really expect to have out of that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like around the same age I read a book called 20 and 2, I think it was.
Yeah, about the Germans, with the kids.
Yeah, and the kids,
yeah.
And so it was also an easy read. It was about war and all that shit. So it was like, oh well, there are good stories that kids can read that aren't like totally traumatic. Because Red Magic Courage didn't traumatize me.
What's Lenny and the Rabbits? What is that?
What?
I don't know.
What's the look of the rabbits? Then he shoots him in the back of the head. He shoots I almost said it. I almost said it.
John Steinbeck.
Shoots the simple man in the back of the head.
What the fuck is it called?
Oh, of Mice and Men.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Lenny. Yeah, Lenny.
Yeah.
The Luger.
Yeah.
I
had to watch that movie and then read that book too. It's part of the same course.
So. Why did you have to watch it?
No, you can't make that joke. That's why I put in my mouth.
I fucked up.
No.
I fucking swore.
One of
and I forgot the point I was going to bring up too.
Yeah, get so distracted.
So when I was around, like I guess the age where you guys read this, somebody handed me a copy of Forgotten Soldier.
Oh,
Guy
I got my copy over here. I got to finish reading.
I was like 10 or 11, and I read that book in 3 days, and my life.
It's taken me 4 years to finish that book, so that's where I'm at. Yeah,
and I finished it.
And I keep like trying to start. I get like a quarter of the way through it, then I get distracted by another book, and then I go back and try to read it again, and then I get distracted and I have to start all over. So I've been reading that book for 4 years. And I'm not even done with it yet. So there's that.
It's been crazy or horrible, but to see what's happening in Ukraine, but then remember the names from fucking Guy Sawyer's memoir I read 15, 20 years ago.
Guy Sawyer?
Like
Nicarova.
It's Guy, isn't it like Guy Sajir or
Guy Sawyer?
Yeah.
Well, he was an Alsatian, so he had a very strange name and everything. He just passed away.
Yeah, he just passed away this year, yeah.
Oh, it's such a good book, but
isn't he the one who chucked, or is that the other one? The other MG book that we read, the one that he chucks a Lafette in like a swamp thing.
No, that's it's right over here. What is it? That's
because we gotta go find that lake.
That's a lake in Austria.
Yeah, we got.
He's an MG-42 gunner in the 6th Gebirgs on the eastern front.
Yeah, we gotta go.
And he fights.
We gotta go to that lake and we gotta track it down.
He's an assistant gunner and he also guns for a bit, but he's carrying a Lafette, which is a German.
I'm sure the tripod would be in great shape too when you find it.
I have one in my basement, so I don't need to go to Austria.
Oh, I need to fix mine. So there's
good for you.
Yeah.
You ever hear eBay? But they don't have those in the Civil War, so let's go back. Pre-Gatling.
Talking about the book and all that stuff. One part
Gatling gun. I almost bought one last week.
Oh, fuck you! Why?
It was $900. I thought about it.
Jesus Christ! Everyone's been throwing that thing away. But
you're gonna fucking mount it on your
Honda. Good luck.
This is how you fight through. You know,
that's how you find an ammo for that.
That you do rolling stops in Baltimore. Anyway.
Dude, when I've heard about like how they had to check and see if they had a malfunction by putting the little mirror inside it and everything like that, I was just like, that is fucking terrifying. Like, if that thing like
the gravity fed. So one dude's job literally is to push on the bullets.
Right. But comparing talking about the book and all that stuff, one part from the book that I really like that is not in the movie. Maybe they shot it, but it was part of the 2-hour version that they cut. Was where after he's kind of like separated from everybody, he stumbles upon a decomposing body, and he's like describes in detail what the body is like, and it's really interesting because it's like he's like face to face to what like death really is. But that was not put in the movie, or if it was completely cut out.
It was.
When was it in the movie?
For a brief second, he almost walks into a body on the road on the way in.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe
that's probably their version.
Their version of it, yeah. In the book, it's like he's basically like being devoured by maggots and things like that.
No. He just like they walk onto the road and they find that, and that's like his big like haha.
Right.
Haha.
It's really, really fucking gory in the book. I remember that.
I'm pulling up the thing.
The IMFDB.
The Thing. That's a good movie.
Because I want to see if they actually included all the extra firearms that were in there.
There's only one.
Oh, Mike, why'd you ruin the dramatic reveal? I wanted that to be a thing where it'd be like, all right, we're gonna go IMD, blah, blah, blah,
it's just
blah,
one,
and then we're just gonna go down, and it's just one.
No, the Enfield pattern 1853.
Yeah, both used by the Union and the Confederate sources.
And Henry uses
forces.
it. Yep.
There we go. And Henry
see the crown on the lock? Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone else does, I think. And that's it.
That's
All right, we're done with IMFDB.
There was only one gun in the movie.
Oh, and apparently Audie Murphy was the one that used.
And there goes Nathan.
That's shit.
He just nicks himself out of the fucking.
Right. Have you guys seen, as we wait for him, have you seen Flight of the Conchords?
No.
It's just an HBO show. It's really funny. It's about these two New Zealanders. Anyway, they keep making jokes throughout the series, like how small New Zealand is.
We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that.
No,
we're not going to talk about that. Nope.
Anyway, at one point, the Minister of New Zealand shows up, Prime Minister. And they're like, "Oh, we need to defend him. You know, who has the gun?" And he goes, "The army's using it because it's such a small country that they only have one gun."
Single gun. So,
yeah. So anyway, Audie Murphy's the only one using the gun from the movie.
There was a lot of shit. I'm not going to comment on. I saw a couple 1861 Springfields, and that's right. I saw 1903s. I saw Turkish Mousers. I give her 98s.
You saw Turkish Mousers?
Yep, or some kind of like mouse. It might have been Spanish Mousers, but like yeah. And then I saw
like really far off in the background kind of thing
as extras. Yeah, in certain scenes.
Okay.
Mosin Nagants because they have the same kind of socket bayonet, so that whatever.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. If you go back and look at like,
it was really go back and watch it.
Yeah,
it's when they're marching across the river. They're using 1903 dummy guns, like 1903 rifle dummy guns. Yeah,
I didn't see that.
When they're first marching across the river,
I must have like had like rose colored glasses on or something because
it's also hard to see in black and white, but like it's just I was laughing. I'm like, yeah, because actually I have a timestamp. So at 14 minutes and 30 seconds in, they're carrying 1903 training rifles.
I'm gonna pull it up here.
Yeah, pull it up and then
I got it up here.
That was the only note that I took.
What was the time? What was the time of it?
14:30.
14:30. 14:30.
Yeah, you could. They were like way shorter.
Oh yeah. You can barely see it.
Fuck it. Who's gonna know?
That's funny.
What do you mean you barely see it? It's fucking the bolt sticking out of the fucking side of it. Like it's in that whole sequence. It's not just like 14:30 is where I like remembered because I was laughing so goddamn hard. I was like, that's fucking great. But yeah, there's a lot of like.
By the way, the dead body reference is like 1507. By the way, Mike A. Or somewhere around here, like 15. It's like before, like it's between like 15 minutes and 15:30. Anyway, yeah, no, it's again. I mean, like it being 1951. I always want to say 53, and I was waiting for someone to correct me. 51. I mean. I think this movie is well ahead of its time in terms of everything.
It's definitely not as shitty as I was expecting for something
not
of that
Sergeant
time
York.
No, God, no.
Yeah.
But like between like the mid to late 30s and the late 50s, it's like.
Do you think that's because we're out of war? I mean, cinema at this point is out of World War II. Do you think that's maybe a big thing about how because it seems like when we get out of 1940s films and we go to 1950s, it seems like we tend to like them more. Have you noticed that?
You get an improvement for sure of
that's
filmmaking.
Where war movies started to become what they are today. Sorry to cut you off as I cut you off, but no, it's just a different narrative, and the war changed people so much. Is that
Well, and here's the thing: is like so the Great Escape, right? And Hell is for Heroes, shit like that. That's when I consider like the early 60s, the very early 60s is when I consider war films to start getting better. Like when they actually put effort into it. There's a lot of like just fucking we'll make them because they'll sell because daddy was in World War II, blah, blah, blah. But like when you actually get into like films, like one of my favorites of all time is The Great Escape, right?
Classic.
And that brings the World War II movie to the next level, in my opinion. And that starts in the early 60s when you start seeing A, color, B, just more research and thought and production value going into these films. So in the early 50s, you're still I should be specific. I should be very fucking specific. In World War II films, okay? That's when they started improving. Now, this was a Civil War film. Now, as far as the accoutrement of each soldier, I don't know because I don't know the uniforms verbatim, from the Civil War. I'm pretty sure those knapsacks, those khaki ones, were like Spanish American War or later.
Right.
I don't know. But I'm not going to comment on any of the uniforms or any of that shit because I just don't know.
I would say more of the comment of just I don't know if I'm really reacting to the less need of propaganda war films. Maybe that might be what I'm feeling more than anything. It's like, it's less push the patriot. How do I say it? there doesn't seem to be any kind of hidden message other than storytelling for most of these 1950s films. When you get in like the 1940s and or when the Cold War starts really ramping up, you start getting these kind of underlying messages with film entirely. And
this is about when the Cold War was ramping up, but because it's Civil War, American Civil War.
But I mean, like it didn't stop them from doing that kind of underlying message with different eras during World War II. Like you would still have like Civil War like eras, or or Sergeant York, for example.
That was also very recent,
right? Well,
the Civil War, those guys had mostly died off by the time World War II happened.
Yeah, but I know there's Civil War movies that do push that underlying patriotism of that before the end of World War II.
Well, I'm
just wondering if Hollywood's it's trying to influence people to join the military, to put the war bonds, to donate the resources, like all that's not needed. So maybe they don't need to do that. But underlying in this push film,
I didn't get that.
No, I'm not saying that.
I get your point. Is what you're saying is like, because it was a different time period. Because Sergeant York, even though that was 20 years prior, or roughly 20 years prior, it was still fresh in the minds. Those guys were still around. Everybody knew World War I veterans. Right, those were everybody's dads, their uncles, their friends. So it's very fresh to push a narrative. The Civil War guys in 51, good luck. Good luck finding one. But so therefore, there's really no need. There's no direct correlation to pushing any agenda. Like, because 51, obviously, the Korean War was ablaze, which nobody fucking knew about at the time, unless you were involved with it. But like, there was no need in this particular film, in my opinion, because of what you said, to push that kind of drive to go to the enlistment office, because it was a totally different time period and a different message, I guess. So,
right. No. I agree with that. I mean, I think. Do you think though that because they don't have to have that underlying tone, that you think that the films are inherently better?
Yes.
On this time period, because it seems to be from what we've reviewed already that seems to be the underlying case, is that for the most part, most films prior to 1950 prior to 1948 are very much filled with propaganda and or underlying messages that seem to like not really be pertaining to the story other than pushing some kind of agenda.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, yeah. Okay. Brian, what do you think? You're quiet.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just interesting, as we watch more of these films and conceptualize them and everything, it's just interesting to see when the modern idea of war movie started. And there were some pre-war things that were pretty good. Like Wings is one that's great. Won the first Oscar. It's a film about like World War I flyers. It's great for its time and everything.
Yeah, Bill Wellman.
It's not like
Bill Wellman was a World War I pilot. He made that movie. Yeah.
Oh really? Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Wow, great movie. It's one of the first silent films I ever saw too. But like you get that really good gem. But then you get like Gunga Din, which is like plays on all the tropes of like the pre-warness and everything, and like it's interesting. And then you get Sergeant York, which is a pre-war movie, but it's made for wartime. And we talked a lot about it, whatever. But like it is kind of interesting because for me, that's where like the narrative of like the story of a war film begins. Even though it's a shitty film, like they really got the formula right there. And then the whole world gets thrown into chaos and everybody wants to murder each other. And then coming out of that, you're like, hey, right before that. And we made all these propaganda films. There was this film that we kind of had like a formula going, and that pushed its way out of propagandiness of the early Cold War period into like, Hell's for Heroes, Cross of Iron, the films that we know and love. But it really was that, 41 to 48 period where the films that we know today really took shape. And then once they got more funding and the Cold War took off and stuff, and they got a little bit away from the politics, like really after the Korean War, where people get disillusioned with like, oh, this is going to keep going on. Like, what the fuck? So that's when you start having like, movies pull away from the narrative. Like Pork Chop Hill is like a great film and everything. It got support from the Marines, but it's not like a pro-war movie. The whole thing is like anti-war. It's like, when is this fucking thing going to end? And that was made right at the end of the 50s. So it's interesting how like the narrative changes. But no, I agree. It's definitely in that 40s period where like, these things start to come to light. And films like this, where World War II veterans, directors to actors, are pulling on their experiences of trauma and stuff and really putting it on screen. I mean, the Depression was bad and stuff, and the 20s was bad. And there was, as Michael has said, there were some World War I veterans that funded their own stuff and made their own stuff. But like, you know, when the whole world was thrown into it, and everybody had these fucking experiences. Because think about all the Hollywood guys that fucking, I was in the Navy, I did this, I did that. You know, like fucking everybody had something to pull on. So when you came to these war things, it's like, oh yeah, when I was on Saipan, well, when I was in Egypt, oh yeah, well, when we fucking liberated Birkenau or whatever, you know, like it's just, that's where the films really took off.
Right, yeah.
Became what they are. So yeah, so I stay quiet, but I give you
no, it's fine. I just want to get your take on it. I mean, I just want to make sure I'm not like screaming in my own echo chamber.
No, you're not. It's just, you know, it's just one of these things where the only way to make the correlations is to do the work, and you have to watch all these fucking movies. And you're like, oh,
right. I mean, we'll like and then we'll change. We'll summarize up here once I finish this statement here. But like, I have like a DVD like booklet thing that I've had for probably almost.
What's a DVD?
Yeah, it's called a digital video device.
Disc?
Yeah, no, I know it's a disc. Yeah, and I have like a little like
is that like a floppy disk?
Yeah, it's like a floppy. Yeah, you hit the save icon. You know, the save
3.5 inch. Yeah.
Pinky. There we go. I have it's like a 10-15 disc set of like almost like 55 movies made from like 1938 to 1945, and they're very much like real shit movies that were churned out super fast during wartime, and they're all World War II based, and I haven't had the willpower to sit down and watch these things. I've had them for almost 15 years, and
You
I
gotta
still
tell me
haven't.
what's in there.
Hey, Nate.
What?
Nate, hey.
What? Who gives a fuck?
No, I was just gonna say you have a laundry basket behind you. It looks like it's gonna fall.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever seen Trumbo?
Seen Trumbo with
The
Bryan
what?
Cranston?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Have you guys seen it?
I saw it in theater, and I was the only person in theater.
I don't live in front of a
sad.
fucking TV
I watched
screen.
it like a year or two ago. It's pretty good. But there's a great scene in it where he gets blacklisted, so he has to work for like B or C theaters and stuff.
Yeah.
And, is it Brian Good or
It's
Goodman?
John Goodman, yeah.
John Goodman, yeah, I was fucking up. So John Goodman, he plays this like B, you know,
sleazy movie producer.
Like, yeah, really lazy. And there's one scene where it's like, you're hiring a communist, and he just throws down these papers like, we make shit. Nobody gives a fuck who writes it because we make shit. Yeah. You know, he throws it. He's like, and he's got all these women around him. He's like, I do it for this. We make shit. Fucking really right. It was so funny because again, the Hollywood of today is not the Hollywood of then.
Yeah,
there's two totally different things.
What you just said sounds like somebody that I know.
I would love.
Wow.
I don't know where it is because it's not in. I put it in storage recently, but I'm gonna pull it out. I'll take a picture for you guys. I'll put it on the chat, and so we can maybe, if you guys want to deep dive into that, I have a whole bunch of stuff we can go into.
I'm interested.
So, yeah, we could.
I have to poop.
And no,
it's a family podcast. Come on.
Yeah.
I'll start my thing out with this. Where does his hat go?
Where
does Audie Murphy's hat
fell
go?
off.
No, they take it off, but they never put it back on.
He lost it.
Take it off.
He lost it when he got hit in the head.
No, he had his hat on until he got to the camp, and then they took his hat off, and then
he put
they just leave it behind the rest.
Well,
of
he
the
was
movie.
bandaged, and they lost his hat.
Oh, I know. Well, I know
deal.
I know the reason is because they wanted to bandage him to stand out the film. But I was just like, he's like, good hat. Wow, what's wrong with your head? And they don't put it back on. It's like, so I thought that was kind of fun.
Well,
they forgot about it. They didn't give a shit.
Not only that, but like usually they'll do something to the main actor so he stands out from everybody.
No, that's exactly what they did, but still, it was just like,
well, in real life, too,
literally
it's like,
took his hat off, and then just left it there. Like,
but in real life, it's like, okay, whatever. Like,
years.
Right?
They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit.
I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, you're gonna just take your hat off and leave it.
One guy at the end takes off his Union hat and tosses it and puts on one of the rebel hats. You know,
cap hats. Yeah,
they're more comfortable.
It was just strange to leave shit behind like that. It's like, okay, you know, again, I know the reason, but it was just like, anyway. So yeah, it was an interesting movie. I liked it on a lot of, for a lot of different reasons. I think we nailed everything here talking about it. One thing we didn't talk about that I did like was like, it's hard to understand this from their perspective, but like, we're very lucky to live in an age of knowing our bodies and knowing things about health and everything like that. You know, the Civil War and these really pre-20th century times, they didn't. you know, like even the early 20th century Typhoid Mary and things, you know, and all these whatever. But it was interesting to like when guys got wounded in this film and they were like, it's bleeding a lot. They really wouldn't know why
or how to put on a
like
tourniquet or
things like that. And I thought that was cool because it had to take me a second to take it out. Because even the Second World War, like everybody had like basic first aid classes, and you know this is what a body is, and this whatever, and like so it was just interesting to think about like the 1800s or earlier, like when you're getting fucked up in battle, and like you're just going to keep fighting because you have no idea how bad it actually is or whatever. So I thought it was a very cool point in the film, and so a lot was taken to like really put this into that time and place and whatever.
That's a very good point. I didn't think about it like that.
I was just cool just because the guy's like, oh, I guess I'm bleeding a lot, and I'm like, yeah, you know, you guess you are, because you fucking are guessing.
Oh,
you know,
my
like,
kneecap was shot off, and I'm just pouring blood out of it. Yeah, weird.
Yeah,
I thought bones didn't bleed. You know, it's weird.
Yeah.
I didn't know my bones had connection.
Yeah,
you know, like, but
bleed like a cow.
No.
Yep.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's his reference.
Yeah.
What do you know? Like, oh, I'm bleeding like a cow. Like cows bleed a lot. Like it was very, very interesting. You know, they did a good job of doing that. Not like my pharyngeal artery happens to be leaking from the third junction. It's like, no, fucking, it's like our cow. But anyway, that was a cool thing they did. But no, they did a lot in this film, and I love John Huston. He's such a good director. I mean, Maltese Falcon is probably one of my favorite films, along with Treasure Sierra Madre. Just so good, fucking amazing. But that being said, I mean, I don't know. I felt like some of the things didn't deliver right. Like some of the lines are off a bit, and I really do see that because it got cut so many different times, and they added so many different things. I think it's really worth a watch, but I would give it a 6 out of 10. You know, I think it's very pivotal and it's very important, and it's got, you know, good actors like Audie Murphy, one of his big roles and stuff. But overall, I mean, it was so ahead of its time. They didn't respect it for that, and it got cut up, and it does show at points, you know. Like Nate had mentioned something with like this Disney show where they like, you know, took old episodes and 5 years later like pieced it together. And that's what happens when you take something and then, you know, a long thing and make it short and make it long again. It's just like it loses its feel, it loses its pace, and it can feel out of place. But good film.
When you patch something up a lot, you can start seeing the patchwork.
Exactly. So, yeah. Like they say with my background in real estate, they say with like a house, you can always see where the addition was put on. It's very, very rare where you can't be like, oh, they fucking blew this wall out, you know? So same kind of thing. It's very hard to do that and play with these things because they're written as one thing and they should stay as one thing, but that never happens. But it's a very interesting film, and I think it really does, you know, again, set the stage as far as how war movies are made. And this came out the same year or around the same time that one of my all-time favorite war movies came out, Battleground. And they share a lot of very similar things with how like a war story forms. So it's definitely worth a watch. It's a very good Civil War movie. And I'm looking forward to reading the book to see how they compare. So I pass the talking bell to you, Mr. fucking Southerner. Stay down there.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm the only one who's technically a Southerner again. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, everything I said before, you know, the camera shots, I feel like were very ahead of its time. I feel like the pacing, the way things were laid out was pretty well done. Again, it's a 1950s black and white film. We have to put it into a box. For me, I think I have to really do that. But there are some shots that kind of pull it out of that box for me. And I kind of viewed this movie a little bit above trying to have to put it in its like kind of own little world to judge it. I mean, there's not much to be saying about it. I don't know the fine, minute details that would possibly make this really stand out as in like, oh, this is bad or whatever. But to my kind of very, you know, mildly trained eye, I mean, nothing really stuck out to me. Not even the Springfields that Mike B had pointed out earlier. I didn't even notice those. So like, you know, if I have to think about my viewing, I mean, like, I really like this movie. But you know, it does have its flaws, like kind of what Brian said, you know, the patchwork of the editing, all that kind of thing. So I think I think it's going to be like a pretty fairly average thing. I'm going to give it 7 Screaming Mel Gibsons out of 10. I mean, it's not bad. It's not horrible. It's very enjoyable, but it's also not dead. You know, like I didn't have to like go, okay, wait for this thing to be over. Oh my God, let this part over. And it seems very digestible. You know, an hour is really nice for what this is. It's really nice. I'm sure if it was an extra 20, 30 minutes, I'd have more to rip it apart about it, you know, from it. You know, maybe it drags too long or this part didn't make sense or whatever. But overall, I really liked it. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me.
All right. Yeah, I like this one quite a bit. I think it's for its time. It was really good, and I think it's Audie Murphy's best performance in terms of his acting career. And no, I think like I would like to see the 2 hour version. Just for curiosity's sake. But I honestly think that the barely over an hour runtime is enough. But maybe like there might be some more stuff to put in there. But like it's already pretty condensed in terms of everything that's going on. It's all kind of in one location. And things like that. So yeah, I like it a lot. I think for when it was made, it was really good, and I think it has some really interesting stuff to say about war. I'm also going to give it a 7. So that leaves Mr. B.
Yeah, you guys hit a lot of the main points on the head. One thing that I noticed that it addressed fairly well, even for being that time period, was cowardice or perceived cowardice.
Yeah,
and how it didn't show the officers cutting down the guys that were running back, but it showed them saying, "Get the fuck back," even though the officers are scared. And then you see a lot of guys running. It's not just Henry. It's not just, his friend. It's like everybody's running. And then you find out, oh shit, we actually held them. How the fuck do I go back? And you go back and you realize that, oh, a lot of these other guys ran and they came back too. And trying to lie about that. But also it's not like this death sentence of, oh, I was a coward, therefore I'm going to be executed. It was like, okay, I was not experienced at all. I had no idea what I was going to do, and I fucking ran. And then I come back, and it's about redemption at this point. It's like, well, I view myself as a coward before, so now I'm going to push twice as hard to prove that I'm not. And that's what a lot of these guys did. And in the film itself, not in real life, I can't speak for that, but like that was a pretty cool arc that was not just with the main character, but like a lot of the main characters and kind of the plot. And I really enjoyed that part of it. Because it shows how people are. Like, yeah, there are people who just freeze up in combat. There's people that want to run and they do run. There's people that just do their thing and they end up dying or whatever. Who knows? But anyway, as far as the film's concerned, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And again, the hour and 9 minutes or hour and 8 minutes or whatever with credits or without credits, perfect length, I think. Although it would be interesting to see the 2 hour one, but I think they got the message across in an hour. Very easy to digest. And for that time, again, like we were talking about earlier with Nate, is it didn't push an agenda. It didn't like, it wasn't like go sign up, go fucking join the army, go join the Marine Corps, fight for your country. It was just trying to portray a story that was written and blah, blah, blah. So as far as the technical stuff, I don't know anything about the uniforms or the weaponry, so I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to do that. So I have no reference for that. But as far as entertainment value and just kind of how it was shot, close-ups, things that it actually touched on and covered, I'll give it a 7 out of 10 as well. Decent.
what is that from?
Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, of course.
So putting it into the computer that will tell us when the Vietnam War ends, this gets a 6.75. So high on our scale.
Yeah, above average.
Highest one in a while.
Not terrible at all. Not terrible. It was.
No.
Yeah.
It's worth a watch. It definitely is. And, if you're just a student of war films, or if you're just like Civil War films, it's or Audie, whatever. There's a billion different reasons.
Well,
to
also,
watch it, but
I forgot to mention really quick. I'll just say this: the acting is not shitty.
No.
Like you expect for that time period, the acting to be shitty. It's not shitty. It's actually pretty cool.
Like I say, I think Audie Murphy's best performance.
Yeah, and it's everybody in that film did a great job at portraying. It wasn't over the top. It was just, besides the whole cinematic shit where they're getting blown up and the arms are up in the air, but whatever. But the actual acting itself was really pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and See you guys next week.
Wow.
Fuck you, fucking Nathan.
I'm right here. You can only do that when I'm gone. All right, you can't.
No, I can do it whenever I want to. Even when I see you.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a rating. Otherwise, Mel Gibson won't stop screaming. If you like this content, make sure to check out our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram pages. If you want to directly support our work, make sure to check out our Patreon. All these links are in the description below. Until the next time, Scuttlebutt out.